It was a Tuesday, exactly 1 month before my wedding. I was humming along to the radio, sorting through the avalanche of seating charts and vendor confirmations that had taken over my dining room table, when Dominic walked in, his face a storm cloud. He took one look at me, sighed, and said, "Are you sure you can even fit into that dress? Maybe we should have a backup plan, like a tent." I should have known then. I should have seen the iceberg looming beneath the surface of his poorly veiled joke. I'll never forget the cold dread that seeped into my bones in that moment, a feeling that something precious was about to be irrevocably broken. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah, and I'm sharing my story today about a heartbreak that ultimately led to a new beginning. I hope my experience resonates with some of you. Please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to know where my story is reaching. Dominic and I had been together for 5 years. 5 years of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and dreams carefully woven together. We met in college, survived long distance while he finished his degree, and built a cozy life in a quiet suburb. He was, I thought, my best friend, my rock, the steady presence I could always count on. The engagement felt like a natural progression, a beautiful promise of forever. But the weeks leading up to the wedding were off. Dominic was distant, preoccupied. He'd snap at me over the smallest things, then apologize profusely, blaming work stress or wedding jitters. I tried to be understanding, chalking it up to pre-wedding anxiety, but his offhand comment about my dress was different. It felt malicious. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in my head. I wasn't overweight.
I'd been working out regularly, and the dress fit perfectly during my last fitting. Why would he say something like that? Was he just nervous? Or was there something more? The gnawing feeling in my stomach wouldn't let me sleep. The next morning, I decided to confront him. I waited until he finished his coffee, then gently broached the subject. "Dominic," I began, "what you said about the dress last night, it hurt. Was that supposed to be a joke?" He avoided my gaze, fiddling with his coffee mug. "I didn't mean anything by it, Sarah. You know I didn't. I'm just stressed. This whole wedding thing is a lot. But it felt personal," I pressed, my voice trembling slightly. "Like you were deliberately trying to make me feel bad." He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange mix of guilt and frustration. "Okay, fine. Maybe I am a little stressed. Maybe I'm having second thoughts."
Is that what you want to hear? His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Second thoughts. After 5 years? After all the planning, the deposits, the invitations? My carefully constructed world began to crumble around me. Second thoughts about what, Dominic? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. About the wedding? About me? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the length of the kitchen. About commitment. About forever. About whether I'm really ready for this. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Commitment? He'd never seemed afraid of commitment before. He'd been the one who pushed for us to move in together, the one who talked about buying a house, about starting a family. What had changed? What brought this on, Dominic? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What's going on? He hesitated, then mumbled something about needing space, needing time to think.
I knew then that something was deeply wrong. This wasn't just pre-wedding jitters. This was something else entirely. The following days were a blur of tense silences and strained conversations. Dominic became even more withdrawn, spending hours on his phone, often leaving the room to take calls. I started to suspect he was hiding something. One evening, while Dominic was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a text message. Curiosity, or maybe desperation, got the better of me. I knew I shouldn't, but I picked up his phone. The message was from a name I didn't recognize. Maria. It read, "Thinking of you. Hope you're having a better day." Who was Maria? And why was she texting my fiancé? I scrolled through their message history, my hands shaking. The messages were innocuous enough, mostly work-related, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of intimacy. Jokes, shared frustrations, late-night chats about their day. It was the kind of casual, comfortable communication you'd expect between close friends, or something more. The shower turned off, and I quickly put the phone back exactly where I found it, my mind racing. I couldn't confront him without proof. I needed to know the truth. The next day, I decided to pay a surprise visit to Dominic's office. He worked as an architect for a small firm downtown. I told myself I was just bringing him lunch, but really, I was looking for answers. When I arrived, I asked the receptionist for Dominic. She smiled and said he was in a meeting. As I waited, I noticed a woman sitting at a nearby desk. She had long, dark hair and a warm smile. Something about her felt familiar. Just then, Dominic emerged from the conference room, laughing, and standing right beside him was the woman from the desk, Maria.
They were walking incredibly close to each other. Their shoulders were almost touching. I was able to get a look at his face when he looked at Maria. The way he was looking at her was something that I hadn't seen on his face in a very long time. Dominic froze when he saw me, his smile fading. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "I brought you lunch," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. "I thought I'd surprise you." He introduced me to Maria, who offered a polite but strained smile. The air crackled with tension. I could feel it, thick and suffocating. I just knew it. I couldn't stay. I made some excuse about having to get back to wedding planning and practically ran out of the office. The image of Dominic and Maria burned into my brain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the scene in my head. Dominic and Maria, the text messages, his sudden coldness. It all added up to one terrifying conclusion. Dominic was having an emotional affair. I knew I couldn't go through with the wedding without knowing the truth. But how could I confront him? I needed proof, something more concrete than my suspicions. The opportunity came unexpectedly a few days later. Dominic's mother, Valerie, called me, her voice tight with concern. "Sarah, honey," she began, "can we talk? There's something you need to know about Dominic." We met at a small cafe near Valerie's house. She looked tired, her usually cheerful face etched with worry. "I don't know how to say this," she started, "but Dominic's been acting strangely lately. He's been distant, unhappy, and I think there's someone else." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was coming. "Maria, right?" Valerie looked surprised. "You know?" I nodded, explaining about the text messages, the visit to his office, the way he looked at her. Valerie sighed. "I suspected as much. He's been spending a lot of time with her, working late, going out for drinks. He claims it's just work, but I know my son. He's emotionally invested in her." She went on to tell me that she had overheard a phone conversation between Dominic and Maria, a conversation that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. It was an emotional affair, plain and simple. Valerie was devastated, not just for me, but for Dominic. She knew he was making a mistake, jeopardizing everything he had with me for a fleeting infatuation. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "You deserve so much better than this." Armed with Valerie's confirmation, I finally confronted Dominic.
I showed him the text messages. I told him about my visit to his office, and I recounted Valerie's story. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try to defend himself. He just sat there, his head in his hands, shame radiating from him in waves. "It just happened," he mumbled. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. How could you, Dominic?" I cried, my voice cracking. "How could you do this to me? To us?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a desperate plea for understanding. "I don't know. I'm confused, okay? I'm scared. I don't know if I'm ready for marriage." So you decided to have an emotional affair instead of talking to me? I asked, incredulous. Is that your solution to being scared? He didn't answer. He couldn't. He knew he had messed up royally. I knew then that the wedding was off.
I couldn't marry someone who wasn't honest with me, someone who would betray my trust so easily. The pain was excruciating, but I knew it was the right decision. We called off the wedding. It was a messy, painful process. There were tears, accusations, and a lot of unanswered questions. I moved out of our apartment and back into my brother's spare room. The future I had so carefully planned vanished in an instant, leaving me feeling lost and adrift. Dominic wanted to talk, to explain, to apologize, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. I needed space, time to heal, time to figure out who I was without him. A few weeks later, Dominic asked me to attend a family meeting. He said he wanted everyone to understand what had happened, to clear the air. I was hesitant, but Valerie convinced me it was important. The meeting was a disaster. Dominic's best friend, Paul, tried to paint me as the villain, accusing me of being controlling and demanding. He claimed that Dominic was just trying to find some happiness outside of our suffocating relationship. I was stunned. I had always thought Paul was my friend, but he was clearly more loyal to Dominic, even if it meant twisting the truth. But then, something unexpected happened. Dominic's sister, Emily, spoke up. She defended me, pointing out Paul's manipulative behavior and his long history of interfering in Dominic's relationships. She revealed that Paul had always been jealous of me, seeing me as a threat to his control over Dominic. Emily's words were a turning point. They exposed the toxic dynamic that had been poisoning Dominic's life for years. Paul's influence, coupled with Dominic's own insecurities and unresolved issues from his father's abandonment, had created a perfect storm of emotional instability. As I sat there, listening to Emily speak, I realized that Dominic wasn't just a victim of circumstance. He had allowed himself to be manipulated. He had chosen to betray my trust. And while I felt sympathy for him, I couldn't forgive him. After the meeting, Dominic finally started therapy. He began to confront his issues, to understand his patterns of behavior. He called me several times, expressing remorse for his actions, begging for another chance. But it was too late. The trust was broken, the damage was done. I couldn't go back to the way things were, even if I wanted to. I spent the next few months rebuilding my life.
My brother Mark and my best friend Lisa were my rocks, always there to offer a shoulder to cry on or a much-needed distraction. Surprisingly, Valerie and Emily also became unexpected sources of support. They were both heartbroken by what had happened and genuinely wanted to see me heal. I started focusing on myself, on my own happiness. I took up painting again, something I had abandoned during the wedding planning frenzy. I went hiking, I spent time with my friends. I rediscovered the joy of being alone. I also started therapy. It was a difficult process, but it helped me understand my own patterns, my own vulnerabilities. I learned that I had a tendency to put others' needs before my own, to prioritize harmony over my own happiness. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it began to lessen, to become more manageable.
I started to see a future for myself, a future that didn't involve Dominic. One day I realized that I had stopped checking his social media, that I no longer felt the urge to call him. That was when I knew I was finally moving on. We had booked a honeymoon to the coast, a week of sun, sand, and relaxation. After calling off the wedding, I debated canceling the trip altogether. But then I had an idea. I decided to go anyway, alone. It was the best decision I ever made. I spent the week exploring the coastline, hiking through redwood forests, and swimming in the ocean. I ate delicious food, read books, and watched the sunset every night. It was a journey of self-discovery, a chance to reconnect with myself, to remember who I was before Dominic, before the wedding, before the heartbreak. I hiked along the rocky shore, feeling the salty breeze on my face.
I watched the waves crash against the cliffs, each one a reminder of the strength and resilience within me. I realized that I didn't need a partner to be happy, that I could create my own happiness, my own adventure. One evening, as I sat on the beach, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I realized that I was finally free. Free from the pain, free from the resentment, free from the expectations of others. I was Sarah, and I was enough. My fiancé doubted our wedding. What his mother revealed ruined everything. That's my story, and I hope it inspires you to embrace your own journey of self-discovery. Don't let anyone dim your light. You are stronger than you think, and you deserve to be happy. Please subscribe to my channel for more stories like this.